Ladies and gentlemen, Tyson Popplestone here. This is the Relaxed Running Podcast, brought to you by relaxedrunning.com and also by our first ever show sponsor, Rundies Undies Athletic Underwear. Let me tell you a little bit about Rundies. Rundies were founded in 2015 by Australian marathon star. You've heard of her before if you've been here, Jess Stenson, formerly Trengove. Her husband Dylan and her brother Jack in 2015. They're smooth, breathable, supportive, and features soft bamboo fabric in the gusset. Don't be embarrassed if you don't know what a gusset is. Just Google it. It's what I had to do. I won't judge you. Their range for men and women include jocks, socks, briefs, crop tops, and the cheeky new little G-string. So if you want to go and check out some of their products at rundies.com.au, you'll find their whole range there. You're going to get a 30% discount if you use the coupon code RELAX30. That's all in capitals, RELAX 30. So jump on over and enjoy a 30% discount off their products. Show's also brought to you by the relaxedrunning.com membership. We've got nearly 50 members on board now. So if you want to come over and see what the fuss is about, please do that. You get a 3-day free trial when you sign up. So if you just click the $5 a month membership option, the first 3 days are free. So you're going to get access to bonus podcast episodes. You're going to get access to the Elite Insight video section. You'll also have access to our training programs, to our community forum where you can ask and answer questions from runners and experts of all levels. So there's a whole heap there. Top 100 members, or the first 100 members, will never pay more than $5 a month. So if you want to take advantage of that, jump on over to relaxedrunning.com, click membership, $5 a month option is yours. Hey, enough of that. Let me tell you about our guest today. Nate Helming is the creator of the Run Experience on YouTube. He's got about 350,000 people subscribed to his YouTube channel, and I've been a fan of his stuff for a while now, so I wanted to reach out to him and ask him a bit about the inspiration behind what he's created, some of the tactics, some of the techniques that he's got a really simple, practical, helpful, not only to helping you run more efficiently, but just helping your day-to-day life and sense of well-being. So it's a really good podcast interview, and man, he's a wealth of knowledge. I really enjoyed talking to him. So he's coming at us straight out of San Francisco. I was in Melbourne, so we were on Skype. Hey, really good conversation. I'm more of a fan of Skype than what I realized I was. So hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. So let me get out of your way and enjoy the conversation I had with Nate Helming from the Run Experience. I think like a lot of people discovered you on YouTube and really appreciated the material that you're posting. And just reading through the comments, it seems that you've got a really nice range of people who listen to the content and watch the content that you're putting up, from new runners who are trying to figure out their way into the sport and through the sport, to a lot of runners who are just trying to find some nice little ways to break through in their performance. I think just for those runners in the world who haven't heard of you, I'm not sure that there's many of them left yet. Would you just be able to give us a little bit of an overview of how you found your way into the scene and what the intention was with getting it started?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. The Run Experience is a YouTube channel, and also we now have a big training platform and an app that you can download. We actually just released the Android version today, so we're stoked with that. We've been on just Apple for the last little bit. But, we started, wanting to give runners just good quality video instruction just on different aspects of running and staying healthy. And it really started with my own personal journey as a younger runner. I was that person who just had trouble stringing together even a few months of healthy training. And even on my high school cross country team, I was always in and out of physical therapy. And what kind of struck me was that I wasn't getting these solutions from my fellow runners or even my run coaches as much. They would just handle the running bits and they say, you're hurt. Like, just go over else and deal with it. So I've kind of, at the time, I didn't realize the effect it had. All of a sudden, I felt I was like ostracized from my team. I felt like, am I being a wimp here? Should I suck it up and just keep running? What conversations and jokes am I missing out because I'm not, with my fellow runners? And, this applied to me as much in high school as it does to, weekend runners who are really excited to be part of a new training group. And we sort of realized this, the presentation is either ignore this pain and keep running or just sit out altogether. Everyone is going to ignore the pain and keep running until they can't go anymore. And so the initial genesis for me was just for my extension of working with runners in the Bay Area locally as a run coach and a strength coach was like, hey, what if I could make some videos on some things I was having successes with in person, teaching runners how to squat, teaching runners how to do better warm-ups, leg swings, lunges, hip circles, things that just kind of get muscles activated, your hips in the right position. And, as I say, and I somewhat joke, it's like, I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to play one on the internet. But, if we can get runners moving better and just a little bit more muscularly engaged, and I guess you'd even say neurally engaged, that takes care of 90% of the issues that runners will face.
It's a really good point. And I think especially in the running world, I think I'm not sure what it's like in the States, but if you're anything like Australia, when it comes to distance running, I think we've got the commitment to the running aspect covered. We're happy to do more with the hope that that'll lead us to a better performance. But just like you mentioned, if you're constantly struggling with injury and you're constantly struggling being left out of the group and the workouts, it's going to be really difficult long term to improve. And I think that's what I like about your channel, especially, is you seem to target a lot of the things that a lot of coaches, even at the highest level, seem to ignore. And I think people really respond and appreciate to that. But was it so you had started doing some local coaching in the Bay Area, and then after you'd started doing some work with a lot of athletes over there, you decided to put your content online and make it available to people all around the world?
Yeah, so it was interesting. And I realized this. What's interesting about running for a lot of people is it's like an introverted sport. And a lot of run coaches are used to talking to people one-on-one and, sheltering away into some dark room and just pounding out spreadsheets and graphs and looking at all that stuff. I definitely spent a little time doing that, but I was working out of some strength gyms and some CrossFit gyms in the early days. In San Francisco, I was part of this CrossFit gym called San Francisco CrossFit that had some just really interesting members and coaches. It was owned by a physical therapist. So they brought this whole, let's own our movement and mobility and give all people tools to take care of themselves better and not just use CrossFit to thrash themselves in the ground. Because in the early days, as exciting as that sport was, it was getting a lot of, pushback for in certain respects, good reasons. And I was sort of thinking about it as really, is running any different how we treat it, right? We just show up and do it. The goal is, hey, if I can do more miles or kilometers per week in general, that's celebrated than less. If we can run faster, that's more celebrated than slower. This might not be as different as we thought. But what helped me a lot was I wasn't just coaching in my head to one-on-one. I was all of a sudden coaching a room full of 30 people. And I could give a cue or say, hey guys, we're going to do a squat or we're going to do this workout. And all of a sudden I could see 30 different variations of a squat or 30 different ways a squat or a push up or a plank could be messed up. And so that gave me a ton of practice for when I could do a video. I could say, okay, guys, you're going to do a squat and there's the 3 or 5 ways you're probably going to mess it up because I've seen it. And that kind of turned into, me, traveling around a little bit more, doing more seminars for strength coaches and runners on just how they can strength train and move better and kind of self-treat certain injuries. And then eventually I was pretty maxed out, with most coaches, you can only handle so many one-on-one athletes. I can only do so many hours in a day. I think I peaked where I was writing individual schedules for 25 athletes online. And then I was doing 5 to 7 hours of daily one-on-one or group class coaching. And I was tapped. It was like, there's got to be something else here. And I was like 29 when I got there. So I was like, am I just going to, I love this, but like, yeah, what's the higher impact version? And that's what got me into doing video. And, what's funny about video, especially I'm like working with a lot of athlete coaches right now, and I'm trying to like pull them in to do videos with me. And a lot of times I realize there's a little pushback, and they're nervous because they're just not used to speaking in front of a camera. And I remember like the first time I realized I had to do a video, I just scheduled a time with one of my fellow coaches in the gym, and they were just going to meet me in an empty gym and hold their phone in front of me for like 2 minutes. And I was nervous about doing that 2 days before I started, so I can appreciate how that feels sometimes.
It's so funny, man, because one of the things that I constantly see on the comments below the video is how relaxed you look in front of the camera. So how things change, hey?
Yeah, a little bit, just a little bit, just more practice. And it's fun, and I think the other thing that I really enjoy about the run experience and our platform, and a thing I'm really proud about, is that, it's not just about me, right? It's a platform for other voices and coaches and creators to come on. And I think that helps us in two ways. Number one, it helps attract a broader audience of individuals, because we have Morgan, we have Holly, we have Elizabeth on there. We've had a guy named Kirk who's done videos out of another part of the country. Like they have a different point of view. They have a different angle of attack. And just different people are going to resonate with them. And then the second thing, and you can probably appreciate this as a content creator yourself, putting 3 videos out a week by yourself, for 3+ years would be really difficult, right? To keep it at a high quality, just coming up with the ideas and then executing on them. So right now we have a team that we can sort of spread out the burden a little bit. Our audience benefits because they get that variety, and then our channel grows as a result.
Sure. One of the things that I'm always interested in with the people who are coming to my website as well is just to get a little bit of an understanding about what they think goes into becoming a good athlete. And having grown up in the running world and rubbed shoulders with a lot of elite level athletes, you sort of get a little bit of an insight into what the top level athletes are doing. And I think through looking at the running experience, you look at things like strength, and you look at targeting specific races through your running training, and then there's flexibility, and then there's recovery. Are there certain elements that you guys are really focused on building your content around, or are there any particular areas that you think lead to a far better performance in your running experience?
So we have a saying. I have it on my little jacket here on the back shoulder, and the basic saying is like, we want you to earn your miles. And this doesn't happen with brand new runners, but it does happen with the school level, collegiate level runner who's trying to level up, and they see what that next level runner is doing. They're like, well, to get there, I need to do those miles too. And our main message to all those runners is to say, hey, the miles you want to run, or the kilometers you want to run, are a privilege you and your body has to earn. It's not a right. And to do that healthfully and intelligently, the more you're running, the more any little error or breakdown in your mechanics becomes magnified. Any strength and balance becomes more of an issue. When you start running, doing more miles, etc., like any deficiency is exaggerated. You need more time for self-care and strength to balance yourself out, and not less. And so we really want to provide those tools for runners, and to get them thinking about it on day one, versus the kind of the what the kind of unspoken of sort of thing is like, well, I'm just going to run and not change anything until something bad happens. And then when something bad happens, then I'm going to be forced to change my pattern of behavior. And our whole goal is like, let's flip that around. Let's just be more proactive in thinking about, running for me. A good extension of running is just being an extension of a good athlete. And we're in this sort of weird conundrum. Have you ever heard, I always love this. I love this telling the story. Have you ever read the book, or heard of the book, The Boys in the Boat?
No.
So it talks about the 1936 men's Olympic rowing team. And they won the gold medal, and this was in like Hitler's Nazi Germany. And they were like the upset of the upset of the upset. Like they weren't supposed to win on many levels. They were, at the time, United States in rowing, I don't think is very dominant. A lot of European countries were stronger. Like think about UK, London, all the rowing clubs there. And so that U.S. team beat them was big. And then in the U.S., all the dominant teams were all the Ivy League schools on the East Coast, the Harvards, the Yales, the Princetons. And this was a school, there was University of Washington all the way out on the West Coast. So they're kind of talking about their training, a lot of human stories, and just kind of like the coaching geek in me picked up on the small detail. This wasn't even a major detail of the book. But the coach was like, okay, and this is 1936. He's like, okay, guys, like during rowing season, all I want you guys to do is row. Nothing else. I only want you to do things that look like rowing. Every other activity you need to stop because we need to save all our energy for this. And I was like, oh, specificity. That is something that we still talk about and preach today. To be a better runner, all I have to do is run. But what I picked up also in the book is that the lifestyle of a 18-year-old or 20-year-old in 1936 is very different from the lifestyle of an 18-year-old in 2020. These guys are literally walking 10 miles a day to get places. They're not on their phones. They're rarely, if ever, sitting hunched over a chair. They literally are lumberjacks in the summer. Like that was their job. They're lifting, carrying heavy logs, like sawing things. Like I've yet to see that show up in any elite runners or endurance athletes program, is to like carry 100-pound stumps from one side of, the ground to another. And so what I thought about it, I'm like, in this context, specificity makes 100% sense. These guys are strong. They move well because their life demands it. And all of a sudden, if I were to ask for them to strip some of that away and just focus on their sport, I'm totally down. The context today of this message is so different. We have kids who are slumped in chairs all day, hunked over phones, staring at a screen. Their posture and overhead mobility is the worst. Their ankles and hips are the worst. And all we're asking and expecting is that running is going to solve all these problems. And then if we just have them run more without addressing any other athletic aspect of themselves, like they're just hurtling towards nothing good. And to make matters worse, as I continue on my soapbox here, there are certain level of runners and coaches who have survived this gauntlet, right, from the last 20 years. And like the elite coaches now are the people who've just been running for the last 20 years. And the message is like, well, I made it, so why shouldn't you? And there are people on the spectrum, right, that small percentage that will just never get hurt. They never have to stretch. They never have to strength train. They can sit like a lump in their chair and run, and they're fine. But my question is like, well, what about the rest of us? What about all those talented runners who had to drop out after high school or drop out of college or university? And it wasn't because they lacked VO2 max, right? It was just because some mechanical thing kept forcing stress fractures or something else. So for me, this is a much bigger conversation than just, how do we be a better runner? Like, to me, this is like, we need to expand the conversation beyond what my heart rate on my watch says.
Yeah, that's really good. So in the context of today, with the foundation being that the kids are slumped over and so many adults are spending their days sitting down, and though I feel like we're starting to wake up to the fact that it is a little bit of a problem, I would say that the majority of people are still living a lifestyle of I guess you'd say laziness without even meaning to. And then to try and come out and run efficiently from that lifestyle, as you're saying, is a really difficult thing to do. So are there particular exercises, gym programs, strength training, or just even little triggers throughout the day that you encourage your athletes to do in order to break them out of this cycle of just laziness, I guess you'd call it, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, it's funny. I want to talk about the laziness part because I don't think this is runners' fault, right? It's not like the runners and the rowers of 1936 were like any smarter than us. It was just their lifestyle, forced a certain degree of physical activity and standard, and they just raised those standards. So the positive of this is that if we change certain aspects about the demands in our life, like our bodies will answer really quick. Like, if you want to learn French, you can learn French. If you want to climb Mount Everest, it might not happen next month, but like our bodies have an incredible capacity to adapt. So that is like a total positive in this conversation. I think what we're grappling with right now is that from a transportation and convenience standpoint, we have done such a good job of engineering all inconvenience out of our life that, we've kind of gotten ourselves here. Like, you used to take the stairs. Now there's an escalator or an elevator, right? It's gotten to the point that even in an airport, you don't even have to walk, right? They've got moving sidewalks. Like, you step out your door and you don't have to walk that far. There's an Uber that's going to pick you up and get food delivered. Like, we've just done such a good job. Like, if you don't have to move to survive at all, right? And like in our modern day, so that's obviously a benefit for running. But in terms of things that runners can do, I think of the lifestyle hours that you spend sleeping, moving, awake as a more powerful lever than even the hours you spend training, right? And if there's 168 hours a week, and let's say, how many hours a week would you say most runners, like an elite runner, would train?
Including gym, including recovery and stuff like that? Yeah, I'd probably say at least 2 hours a day if you're an elite runner.
Yeah, 2 hours a day. So we're looking like 14 hours a week, something like that, right? So even if you're training with all incredible intention for those 14 hours, the week has 168. So what about the rest of those hours? Just kind of on scale. So the things that I like to address with my runners is, if you are, let's talk about foot strength, right? If I'm in soft, cushy shoes all the time, maybe that's appropriate for my long run. How can I spend more time barefoot or in minimal shoes just to give myself a better sense of the ground and to just strengthen my feet? And literally that could be, I'm at the office, I'm running errands, I'm in the gym, I'm from home. Like, get out of those cushy shoes, get out of those orthotics if you can. Like, just from like a basic foot strength thing. If you are, like a lot of us spending time working, can you work at different levels? There's more talking about how sitting is not necessarily the best and we should be standing more. I think if a lot of people just stand for 8 hours, they're going to get crushed. So how can you spend time sitting on the floor? How can you spend time sitting or standing? If you've got a phone call, can you get up and walk around and move a little bit? And I just think those little things, as subtle as they are, they really have a huge, powerful effect in terms of just being a little bit more open with your body. From just a culture standpoint, I can get a bunch of adults who don't know each other in the gym walking around doing bear crawls on their hands, doing a bunch of weird warm-up stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, like, we're in this place, this is what we do, this is what our culture says. That's fine. If you show up at a group run, for the most part, and there are people who warm up on their own and do things, but most of what the culture says is, hey, we stand around and chat with our friends and do nothing until we all start running, and then we shuffle off. So I joke, because like, hey, slow jogging is not the best warm-up for slightly faster jogging, especially if you're coming from your car where you've been sitting and you're stuck, or you just woke up and you're just not awake yet, or if at the the middle of the day and you're just like, your hips are tight, shoulders are stiff. So if there's anything anyone takes away from here is like, give yourself 3 minutes to do a dynamic warm up, opening up your hips and shoulders. We've got tons of videos on my channel about that will instantaneously change that first experience of your run and help your mechanics a ton.
Yeah, it certainly opens up that mechanics. As you said, I'm picturing so many people down at the track who are running at an elite level, just doing those basic drills before they start their race, which I guess someone who's starting running for the first time or are new to the sport looking in can look a little bit foreign. But as you say, if you can just start to develop that biomechanics and increase that movement throughout, so many of the joints are just stagnant, it's going to be a real benefit. But you touched on the training videos and things that you do have on your channel, which there's an endless amount of. I've been really enjoying looking through them, but I also had a look at your website and I noticed that you've got some more event specific and strength specific or nutrient specific training program. Did you want to just walk us through a few of those and some of the reasons behind that? Because I think what I love about what you do is as well as what you do, the foundation, but underneath it, they're built on really solid principles that if people can start to adapt and implement over time can not only improve their running, but I guess their sense of joy and ease and even connection with nature through what you're saying, connection with, a more original state. So I'd love you to speak a little more about some of those principles and the reasons behind it.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do, like one of the realizations I had was, okay, you could have a written running plan written by like the most brilliant running coach out there. Every progression and interval has its purpose. It's like in the schedule at the perfect time. And in theory, if you are the human who can survive that with nothing going wrong and your body takes the things perfectly, and there's no injuries, like you're going to have a great go of things. But for the 95% of people where something does go wrong, or they're not as fit as they were going in as they thought, or they have some sort of movement deficiency they have to address, we wanted to give runners a good alternative and also a sense of self-ownership of their own training. And what we wanted to do was create programs that were video-based and not just text-based. Like it's funny, like when you talk to, if you're familiar with a run coach named Greg McMillan from the United States, he's a former Olympian. He created this McMillan calculator. There's another guy who's a triathlon coach for a guy named Joe Friel. These guys basically started doing remote coaching before the internet. So literally they were faxing workouts to runners. They would like type out or write them out and fax them or mail them in the post to give to their runners workouts. And then, they would get feedback back that way. And then it's turned into different online options, and there's easier to download PDFs. And so what we wanted to do is just leverage the technology and then my skill set working with athletes in person. It was like, what if we were to make video-based programs where all of a sudden it felt like you were in one of my classes or in person, where I could show you, rather than just say warm up or cross train, I could show you what that exactly should look like. Rather than just say, hey, do this drill, I could show you and guide you through what it is, so they have that better experience. And we had fun with it. We just built, we have a bevy of programs, from a marathon to a half marathon program with beginner and intermediate options. We've got a 5K training program. We started with a thing called the 30-day challenge, which was more about okay, what's our core value for all runners? Like if we could create one program that no matter where this runner came from, it's like, what's the 30 days of training we'd want to put them through? And that's what this 30-day challenge was. And it was a little lighter on the run volume, but a little bit heavier and more intentioned on all these things we've discussed so far, from daily mobility work, to different running drills, to more rigorous body weight strength training.
Yeah.
And so that's really the a platform of our programs. And then we did variations. It's like, look, we were getting requests for a barbell program. Like, I've been in the gym for years, so I love swinging a kettlebell and a barbell around. But I wanted to remove all barriers and friction points for runners in the beginning. So it's like, hey, let's just not even bring the gym into the equation. But we added that. And then we work with people on, nutritions from kind of a lifestyle and habit standpoint, how we could bring that into the equation. Right now we're working on an injured runner program where we are trying to give people more guidance, not only from, okay, your knee hurts, do this stretch, to add these certain accessory movements, and then here's how to prioritize or program in some cross training, and then just some different levels so they just have more direction.
Sure. And most of the people that are coming to your programs, are they coming through your YouTube channel, or how do they find out about you?
So they find us a lot through YouTube. I think coaching and the running is such a relationship and community business. Like, it's such a trust thing. Like, I always think about, like, even if I don't know if you watch anything on Netflix or even like you're like downloading a new book, you're like, man, like it's my Friday night. I have these 2 hours. Like, I don't want to waste my time. Right. So it's like, even though there's no incremental cost, right? I mean, you're paying for Netflix, but in essence, like, this movie is free or that's free. I'm not judging my time here based on the money. I'm just hoping that this is going to be a good use of my time, and then it's going to be helpful. So I think with run programs, there's a similar thing. Like, just because a run program is free doesn't mean a runner is going to do it, because all of a sudden you're like, no, it's actually not free. They're investing 5, 6, 10 weeks of their life into this. And they want to know that this is going to work for them. And so for us, the YouTube channel, where they can build relationships with us and try out some of our workouts and get coaching from us, really builds that relationship up. So then all of a sudden they're like, okay, I'm ready to go into the marathon program, and I know what I'm going to get because I've seen a version of this on YouTube.
Sure. One of the things that I'm really interested in picking your brain about as well is the subject of recovery, which I guess is an extension of everything that we've been speaking about in terms of being efficient at what you do. I think people are starting to wake up to it, especially at an elite level. I mean, the conversations that I've had with so many top athletes, and have just experienced myself as an athlete, okay, if you want to run well on the track, you have to make sure you recover well off the track. And to touch on what you said about, how many hours a week we're training versus how many hours that we're spending away from training, it just highlights the significance or the amount of time that we could actually invest in making sure that when we get back to our training program, we're ready to roll. Are there certain things that you would encourage your members or your viewers to do to help recover more efficiently from massage to ice bath?
There are some really fun new tools and toys out there. I would say that there's a lot of modalities that are going to work. I think the biggest thing, allocating the time and creating a habit of it. So, what I like to do at the end of the day, and especially for people who's just like, man, I'm like running, I'm like balancing my life, I've got my kids, I got to make dinner. Like, I don't have more time in the day. And you're like, you don't. So how do we take some of the time that you're already doing things and help, get a little bit more recovery in there. So one aspect from a mobility and self-care standpoint, which just helps break up, adhesions in a tissue, bring blood flow into tired, damaged muscles, would just be, hey, if you're watching a little movie at night or a little show to unwind, like, do it on the floor in front of your TV, right? Like, roll out one muscle group or two muscle groups a night, just as a way of helping fast track things. And that will just help flush your legs out from the previous session, get you ready for the next one. It'll make sure that you're establishing a really good baseline for yourself. Most people, if they don't do any of this and then all of a sudden their knee hurts 8 or 10 weeks into a program, they're really dumbfounded. They're like betrayed. They're like, how could you, me? I thought we've done so much things together. And it just felt like it came out of nowhere. Whereas in reality, something was lurking underneath the surface, just below your awareness. And if I can do things that increase my awareness, I can catch this stuff early and make adjustments. I think another thing that I love is, in addition to training and running, like, I'm someone who mostly works out in the mornings. So what I try to do is go for a walk in the afternoon or evening, like after work, clears my brain, but also I'm working with a physical therapist here in the United States who talks a lot about the importance of walking for just decongesting tissues. And you're just sort of, this gentle movement just adds this little pump into the legs and muscles that just helps clear things out. So like, movement is so key. And if we can do real gentle, easy movement, if my calves or Achilles were stiff from a trail or hard track run that I did yesterday, if I go for a walk tonight, that just helps get some of that out.
Yeah, sure. Are you training for anything in particular at the moment? I did see that you ran a pretty nice 10K from your YouTube video a couple of weeks ago, which I don't want to put words in your mouth, but based on your response, looked like you surprised yourself a little bit with how quickly you ran. So you're obviously doing some kind of training.
I have gone through different phases of training for me, from being very competitive 10, 15 years ago to letting a lot of that go to just focus on traveling and coaching and building my business, to now, having fun, running hard again with some buddies. So my goal currently right now is to go under 18 minutes for a 5K. And I had planned to do that for the Boston Marathon, host a big 5K 2 days before the Boston Marathon itself. So I was going to do that, and I was going to try to film it again if I could. And so right now I'm still doing some hard track workouts because they're fun. I enjoy it. I like right now working on 5K and 10K speed because I can thrash myself for an hour or less. I don't feel too beat up the rest of the day or the week. And I feel like pretty balanced as a human, versus like training for a 50K ultra where I'm like trail running for 4 hours and then I'm just like so crushed for, life.
Yeah, that is brutal, man. You've got some serious talent coming out of the States at the moment. Sorry, did I just interrupt you? Did you finish your answer then, man? That's so funny trying to adjust to the lag on here.
No, there's those are kind of the main things for me. But what were you saying about the talent coming out of the U.S. right now?
I was just going to ask you because it is so interesting to hear about the inspiration that you offer to people. But I was looking through just some of the times, some of the breakthroughs. I can't remember the bloke's name. That he finished third in the marathon trials. He's coached by an Australian guy. That's how I know about him. And he's just qualified for what would have been his first Olympics, which is looking a little bit up in the air. I'm not sure, what the Olympic schedule is going to look like now. It's maybe delayed till 2021. But with all the talent that's around you, with like on an international scene, from Matt Centrowich to Jordan Hasey to like people like Ryan Hall, are there any particular athletes that you look up to, or that you've modeled some of the things that you teach from?
So I really I really like Des Linden. I like her attitude, who was the winner of the Boston Marathon a few years ago. I just sort of generally like her attitude and her grit. She's had so many close calls and hasn't made it. And so when she finally did, that was just incredible. She's a multi-Olympian. I have to hand it to Galen Rupp. I know that there is just some mixed messaging around him, just with his association with Alberto Salazar, but, the guy has delivered, in a big way. For some of the younger up and comers, I really like Scott Fauble and what some of the athletes out of the Northern Arizona Elite crew have done with Ben Rosario. I just like that they're looking at running, especially in this day and age. And I think their coach Ben has done a good job in building a culture of their runners that also connects with the broader audience of runners. So they're really good on social media and just making themselves accessible, and relatable in certain ways. Like Scott loves, he's got his whole like burrito mafia thing, which is kind of a funny thing. So it's fun to see those guys, be knuckleheads and try to run fast.
Yeah, I've been following on Instagram Tin Man Elite for the last couple of months. I've got a mate in Australia. I don't know if you've heard of him. He finished third at the Millrose Games over 3K this year. Jordan Guzman. He actually runs for Malta now, but he lives about 300 meters away from where I'm sitting, and I've recently become friends with him since he moved into the neighborhood. And man, just hearing about some of the quality of athletes and some of the stories that come out of Tin Man Elite. Man, it sounds like there's some really high quality groups that are roaming around at the moment.
Yeah, there really are, and I think like what I've seen, and I'm not the only one to make this observation, but I think in the United States for a long time there was this notion that all professional runners should sort of train alone in their own little silo, and now there's much more of a group communal atmosphere, and I think just everyone training and living together, whether it's in Eugene, Oregon, or Flagstaff, or with like the Hamptons Brook project, like there's just this like rising collective of everything. And it's awesome. You have the older, more experienced athletes working with the new up and comers as they come on the team and they're transitioning out of college and they're a pro runner for the first time. And they're like, how do I do this thing? So I do love that. I think it's very cool. And then, honestly, with one of the fascinating things where I sit, because I don't come from the elite pro running world. Like, my background is I ran some in high school. I ran a little bit more competitively afterwards. I wanted to be a professional triathlete, so I really pushed hard on triathlon and Ironman. I raced Xterra. I raced mountain bikes. I got a little far there. I did some road bike racing. I got into CrossFit. I've just seen a lot of different cultures and sports. And what's funny to me is like, it doesn't matter the sport. I could kind of tell the person who's brand new in the sport because the patterns are all the same. And I could tell the person who's been into it for like a year or two and they've done one or two races and they're wearing all the gear. They've got the compression socks on, and you know what I mean? They're all almost taking themselves too seriously. And then you see the elite athletes who are good, but they have nothing to prove. They're a little more subdued. And it's like, it's the same in every sport. It doesn't really matter. So I'm always interested in that dynamic. But what I love with running are just, even now, like just the different, communities and pockets of runners and just how big running is. I listened to an interview with Zach Bitter on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast where he's talking about how he set the 100-mile world record, running 100 miles in 11 hours and 20 minutes or something. Like he averaged like a 640 mile. And he's planning on running across the United States. So there's like that extension, right, of road and ultra to people who are doing the marathon thing. And then I never ran track. I kind of wish I did, but I am becoming more excited and fascinated with some of the speed events and the track events. And I just think some of the best, most powerful, balanced looking runners to me are the shorter distance. Like they just look awesome.
You got a real appreciation for that technical side of the sport. Hey, like you're thinking of athletes like Usain Bolt and even Matt Centrowitz, your Olympic gold medalist over 1500, looks quite nice. And I'm also just a fan of his racing ability. But there was a couple of years there where, man, just to see his performance on the track, you just knew that whichever start line he was a part of, he was going to be a good chance at winning. But it's interesting to me. I think one of the themes that keeps coming back out of the work that you do is that technical side and that efficiency side, and just trying to get athletes to run, I guess, more efficiently. Would you say?
Yeah, I think so, and I think sometimes like that efficiency, it's sort of driven by the demands of our lifestyle. Like running technique doesn't have to be a mental exercise. Like I think it's part of it, but I think we need to understand that how our arm swings is just a function of just how we carry ourselves throughout the day. And if I'm just a little hunched over, when that thoracic spine is a little bit stiffer, it's called being kyphotic. My shoulders are internally rotated around and in because my pecs are really tight. My arm swing, my elbows are going to start to swing out a little bit more horizontally. And there's no cueing that you or any coach can do to fix that, right? It's just an expression of how my body moves. And I could try to get my arms to swing a little bit more back and forth, but because I don't have that mobility and that range, it's going to look mechanical and weird and stiff, and then it's going to create more problems. So there's so much of our running technique is actually, if I can get you more open, moving better in general, like so much of the running technique, I think takes care of itself.
Man, I think there's a nice crossover between our two audiences in the sense that I would say that my audience, though a lot newer, only started this project about 5 or 6 months ago. But from the comments I've had, there's a lot of people in the elite side of the running, but there's also a lot of people who are just getting into running for the first time and are just trying to find their way through or trying to find their way to improve performance. Do you have any general advice if you have someone that comes up to you and says, okay, I'm quite new to the sport, is there any just general rules that would probably help me improve my running that if I didn't know would just delay the process of me running faster?
So a lot of people, especially who are newer to the sport, are using running to get in shape. But they need to think about whether they're in shape enough to actually run. So I need to build some level of fitness to even start running, to build a body that can handle the impact before I start to load on some of the miles. And of course, like some running can add that in. But I just want to think about, maybe doing a program that is a little bit more balanced, less run heavy, and just more like, hey, for 4 to 6 weeks, I'm doing intervals. It could be on a bike or something else. I'm going to do some run workouts too, but I'm going to do a lot of strength workouts. And it could be, I think the 4 movements that I always start athletes with is the squat, the push-up, the burpee, and the lunge. You can do a lot of damage in a good way on yourself just with those 4 movements of just building yourself up. And if I can, depending on my level of fitness, but if I can really commit to some sessions there, and run on the other days, I'm going to really set myself up for it. And even for the elite athletes, when I see athletes who develop stress fractures in their pubic symphysis or in their femur or something else, you are so structurally deficient that you have this Ferrari engine in this rusted out Toyota Corolla chassis that every time you rev the engine, like a hubcap falls off and like your wheel goes. It's just like you running more is not the win here, right? Like you need to build a body that can handle strength. And I think we need to have an honest conversation about why we're running. Like running 20 to 30 miles a week, running, 3 to 4 days a week, we could probably say most people, there's going to be a health benefit to that. If I am a collegiate athlete who is trying to run 80 to 100 plus miles a week, and I'm doing 2 run sessions a day, we're not doing that for health anymore. And I'm not saying that there aren't mental benefits of striving towards something that's really, really hard. Like I like to celebrate people striving towards those things, but when I've worked with athletes who are professional cyclists, their body starts to look like their bike after a while. They're so uber hyper specialized. It's like, no, man, you're not healthy. Like, let's not pretend that you are. Like, this is such an extreme version of what human beings, should be doing. It's cool. Let's celebrate it. Spend some time, but let's just be honest with what we're going after.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. Just before we wrap it up, for those people out there who are interested in what you've done, what you're doing, maybe even seen some of your videos and are curious about checking out some of your programs, I know you touched on it briefly before, who the programs are designed for, but which people would you point towards the runexperience.com to have a look at your programs, and how is it based? Are you paying for a 10-week program? Is it a membership structure? What can people expect when they jump on over?
Sure. So we definitely appreciate that. So definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel and just our Instagram. Both are at the Run Experience. On YouTube, we're putting out 3 new videos a week. Those are all 100% free, and we do everything from run workouts, run tips, strength, injury prevention. I mean, if you just search for something on YouTube that is half marathon related, there's a good chance one of our videos will be showing up on the first page there. So you could probably find us that way. We have an app that you can download both in the app and the Google Store. Again, just search for the Run Experience. And we have an online membership where you can either pay $20 a month or $120 for the year. And you get access to all of our programming we offer, as well as just higher touch communication with our team of coaches and, access to our runner community. So we've got marathon, half marathon programs, 5K, injury prevention, strength training, nutrition-based challenges, and, other new things we're always putting in there all the time. I would say most of our athletes are in the beginner to intermediate category for most of our programs. Stemming from my own personal experience, I have worked with a few elite athletes in Marin in the Bay Area, and I've had them go through our strength and movement mobility protocols. Like, we just have to remember that the principles for any level of athlete are the same. It's just really the volume and the intensity that changes. So even if you're an elite athlete, all the warm-up stuff, the strength and movement stuff applies just as much to you, if not more so, than it does to everyone else. Mm-hmm. But I would say, the bulk of runners we work with are, people trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon, get under 2 hours for a half, things like that.
Yeah, beautiful, man. No, thank you so much for that. I'm interested, just before we get out of here, what's the training program looking like over in the Bay Area at the moment? I know in Melbourne, there's a lot of news about, hey, stay in your house as much as you possibly can, keep 10 meters away from anyone else. So I can imagine some group runs are difficult over the next couple of weeks. What's the story there for you?
So there are, our gym is closed down for the time being. There are no group runs that are happening. Everyone is, training from wherever they are. Unfortunately, I live over the Golden Gate Bridge in a beautiful area called Marin County, and we just have rolling hills and mountains right at our doorstep. So I just have miles of road and trail without a stop sign or stoplight right above me. So I feel very fortunate there in being able to social distance myself and get everything in. Actually, one of the things that is a big project with a lot of other brands and runners and sponsors to put together some training for people who are all of a sudden stuck at home in the United States and throughout the world. And it's something called Together We Move. We're actually launching it next week, where we'll be offering free daily training in our app that anyone can do. And we're going to feature a lot of great guest coaches and runners and athletes, everyone from, I've got runner and author Matt Fitzgerald, who's going to be contributing something. We have Olympian runners, Dathan Rittenhein and Alexi Pappas will be contributing something with UCAN we're going to see athletes like Emma Coburn do something for us, as well as other big YouTube channels and other run coaches and contributors. So it's going to be this very big collective thing. Everyone's going to come in with their perspective, share something that's a run workout or a strength or core thing they could do at home, or some mindfulness perspective thing to think about right now. You know, does a runner have a purpose in life if their training has been canceled, you know, for racing?
Yeah.
And we're just trying to turn this into a little bit of a positive.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Love
that's
your
all
work.
going to be launching next week. We'll have it online, and we'd love for you to join in.
Awesome, man. No, thank you so much. Well, thanks so much for making the time, man. It's really nice to actually talk at the computer and see your head talk back to me. It's a strange experience rather than just watching your video. So it's been good to connect with you, brother.
Totally.
Awesome,
well, thank
man.
you so much for reaching out. Super fun. And maybe we can get you contributing something for our Together We Move campaign.
Hey, dude, more than happy to. Let me know how I can help.
Awesome.
See you, brother.